Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Wednesday, August the 13th. I had to think about that one. Wednesday, August the 13th, and welcome to our commentary. Well, the big story, and we're going to get into this more as the events unfold. The big story, of course, is President Trump visiting with Putin of Russia. I guess he's president of Russia. I wasn't sure if it was president or chairman. They used to be called chairman before, chairman of the Communist Party, I guess they were called before. But anyway, Trump is meeting with Putin on Friday, and I'm not expecting any, overnight miracles or things are going to happen right away and everything's going to be going great. I do expect that this is the beginning of a resolution to the Ukraine problem, the Ukraine crisis. And that's because I sincerely believe that both Ukraine and Russia want to put an end to this. This is not going well for Ukraine, unfortunately. I mean, and that's not a knock, by the way, on how well they have fought and how strong they are and how courageous they are. I think the Ukrainians have given the world a tremendous demonstration of patriotism and love of country. But when your opponent is 5 times bigger than you are, it sometimes is a little bit difficult to win these wars on the battlefield, especially when you don't have, more larger weapons that you can use against them. The other difficulty for Ukraine is that Russia is now using North Korean troops to fight in Ukraine so that they don't have to bring more Russians for the time being. So, look, the bottom line is that neither side is winning and that both sides want to bring this to an end. And the question is, how do you do that? How do you get the Ukrainians to accept that they're probably going to have to give up some territory? And how do you get the Russians to accept that they got to get out and not come back? Because I think the Ukrainians have a legitimate concern here that they cut a deal with Putin, and 3 years later, they're back in Ukraine. Maybe with a stronger force or whatever. So I understand both sides. And, I want to see Ukraine succeed. I want to see Ukraine win. But for the time being, I think the best thing that Ukraine can do is to accept some kind of a deal, some kind of a ceasefire, maybe agree to losing a little bit of territory just so that the killing stops. The killing has to stop. It is absolutely insane what is going on between these two countries. So we'll see where all of this goes. But again, I feel very strongly that this has to stop. This war has to stop because we're not exactly winning anything, and there's a lot of people losing their lives, and these two countries are tearing each other apart, and we have to bring an end to this war. So that's why I'm optimistic that maybe President Trump can maneuver this situation, but it's not going to be right away. But I do think Trump has the ability to impress upon Putin that there will be consequences if he doesn't play, such as, sanctions, and they can do a lot to the Russian banking system too, if Putin doesn't play along. So let's give this thing a chance. That's all we can do right now. Let's give it a chance. And let's get some of the politics out of it, at least the American politics out of it. And let's give this thing a chance in between these two countries with Putin in the middle. And let's hope that there can be a resolution, or at least the beginning of a resolution to this absolutely horrible situation in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine. I have a post over at the American Thinker today talking about how Trump is again breaking the Democrats. And it's interesting because other people are saying that, that Trump is setting up a trap and the Democrats are going right into it. And what I'm talking about, of course, is the situation in Washington, D.C. Look, there is a crime problem in Washington, D.C. I mean, talk to people, listen to people, watch people on TV talk about it. There is a crime problem in Washington, D.C. It's a hell of a lot bigger than these statistics are pointing out. And there's a big problem. And some of the Democrats are instinctively go against Trump. Instead of saying, okay, Mr. President, we don't like you and we're not going to vote for you, but on this one, you've got the right idea. You've got the right idea. Let's work together to do away with some of this crime and at least bring some security to Washington, D.C. No, they don't do that. They get into an argument about whether or not he can do it the constitutional way, whether this is something that he can do, whether he can federalize the police. You have the governor of Maryland saying, I'm not going to let him come into my state or bring the National Guard into my state. Well, first of all, that's not a call for the governor of Maryland to make. If President Trump decides that there is a security reason, he federalizes the Maryland National Guard, and that's the end of it. I mean, we've seen this done before. But a lot of Democrats are playing this game of opposition to Trump, and they're doing it at the expense of the crime statistics and some of the real problems in D.C. So the smart thing to do would be for the Democrats to say, okay, you got a good idea, Trump. You're right. There's too much crime. Let's work together and work this out. If that were to happen, the Democrat leadership in Washington, D.C. would benefit from it. The mayor of Washington, D.C. would benefit from it. The police would benefit from it. By the way, the police union in Washington, D.C. is supporting this because they're the guys out there doing all the hard work, and they know what the problem is. So I just, as I say in my post, the Democrats have a way of just jumping in the trap. Trump sets the trap and they walk right in. And this is another example of it. They shouldn't be arguing with Trump over crime statistics. Whether it's 280 or 190 is too much either way. And they should be arguing, or they should be working with Trump to try to find a solution to this problem. But they're not. They're playing games. And again, these are not my original ideas here. I was watching just some clips from MSNBC, Chuck Todd, Chris Matthews, people like that saying, this is a trap. Don't fall into it. The lady who has that show in the morning with Morning Joe, I can't think of her name right now. But I think she's married to Morning Joe. She's saying the same thing. This is a trap. Don't fall for it. But unfortunately, they will, because they simply cannot contain their Trump derangement syndrome. And I don't know what to tell you. But they keep falling into it every single time. I've got a post coming out tomorrow about what's happening in Texas. It looks like these Democrats are coming back, and they will be joining the next session that the governor will be calling on Friday, meaning they will be able to participate in the session, and we can get not only the maps done, but also some of the other stuff that has to be done in the session, particularly the money for people impacted or some of the regions impacted by the floods. But the problem, if you listen to the Democrats, is that, and you listen to, Beto O'Rourke talk about, he doesn't care about the rules. He's using all kinds of profanity to talk about it. And somehow they think that that's the formula to win, that if they go out there and they say a bunch of bad words and they sound real tough, that's the formula to win. And that's not the formula for them to win. They're not going to win doing that. Okay, if they want to win, they should come back to Texas and make their case to the people of Texas. Instead of going on the Don Lemon show, come back here and talk to the people here. Go to the talk shows here. Talk to the media here. Do interviews here. Do press conferences here. Do town hall meetings down here and answer these questions from voters, or maybe work with some of the Republicans in the legislature and try to persuade the Republicans that maybe this is not a good idea to be doing redistricting, between the census. I mean, that would be, I think, much more effective than running to another state and hiding from Texas. That, in my opinion, is not helping them at all. So check out my post. It'll be out tomorrow morning. Well, on this day in history, I have a little memory here about Mickey Mantle. It was on this day in 1995 that Mickey Mantle passed away. He had been fighting cancer, I think, for 2 or 3 years, and he died right here in the Dallas area. I didn't realize that he lived in the Dallas area, but he did. especially the last few years of his life. And I wrote a post about Mickey Mantle called The Last at Bat. And I have it, or Mickey's Last at Bat. And I have it over at my blog. I think it was also featured over at the American Thinker, if I remember. I think it was, yeah. Where I talk about how Mickey Mantle handled his death. You know, he was deteriorating for the last 2 or 3 years of his life. And he became a spokesman for young people, telling them, hey, don't do what I did. You know, stay away from alcohol and stay away from some of the things that I did so you don't have to go the same way I'm going. And he became such a courageous man. He died with such dignity, and he was such a great example for people that, you know, I loved him as a player, but after watching the way he handled himself, I loved him even more because he was such a great example and it's such a great message that he was sending to the young people about doing drugs or drinking alcohol or not taking care of yourself. So Mickey Mantle passed away on this day in 1995. I remember the day quite well. I remember there was a big funeral service shortly after, and Bobby Richardson, one of his teammates, spoke. And there was just something about Mickey Mantle. My generation loved him as a player, but the way he behaved at the end of his life, the dignity and the class that he showed at the end of his life as he was dying, for me, he was second to none. And that may have been the greatest moment in an otherwise incredible baseball career. So Mickey Mantle passed away on this day in 1995. And for my generation, Mickey was the greatest. And the way he behaved himself at the end, yeah, he left with such class and such grace that it was absolutely amazing to watch it. Thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.